Hi, my name is Sarah Cranford, and I am a current student at NC State University in the Masters of Arts in Teaching program for elementary education. Today, I want to talk about the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey. This is a book that I chose to read not only just for the purposes of this course, but also to help myself become a better teacher and a better person in the world of not only teaching, but in bettering those around me and myself. One of the biggest ideas that stuck out to me from the beginning of this book is the importance on how we look at life. Stephen talks about it by saying, we must look at the lens through which we see the world, as well as the world we see, and that the lens itself shapes how we interpret the world. We are constantly shaped by the things all around us, and in order to truly understand the situation, we must take a step back and reevaluate the lens through which we are looking. To me, this was also one of the ways that you can incorporate as an effective teaching strategy, how you look at your classroom and your students. No two students are ever going to be the same. And in order to truly understand your students, their way of thinking, their way of learning, you have to take a step back and look through a different lens. Another point that we read about in this book is getting stuck on changing behavior, changing a habit, changing everything around us. But we can't change any of that unless we first change ourselves. That is the key to success. Another big thing that Stephen focused on in the beginning of the book is also something that could be taken as a teaching strategy, and that is finding the right map. The analogy that he uses to explain navigating through change and change in thinking is finding the right map. If we want to get to a certain location on the map, a certain goal, a certain endpoint, we can't even begin if we don't have the right map. While we want to always work on behaviors, changing attitudes, trying harder, thinking more positively, we can't do that. We have to first find the right map. We also have to remember that we can't jump to an end goal. We have to make a shift. Whether the shift is positive or negative, whether it's instantaneous or developmental, the shift is what moves us from one way of seeing the world to another. It's what helps us reach that new level of thinking, and that is the overall goal of this book and of changing yourself into an effective person. Now, before I get into an overview of the 7 habits, I want to first explain that habit is defined as the intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. Knowledge is the what to do and the why. Skill is the how to do, and the desire is the motivation or the want to do. And all of these things are intertwined together, as are the 7 habits that Stephen defines for us, each building and feeding off of each other. So in the next few slides, I'm going to briefly review the 7 habits of the book and then try to circle back to point out my biggest takeaways. Because these 7 habits are based on principles, they bring the maximum long-term beneficial results possible. They become the basis of a person's character, creating an empowering center of correct maps from which we can effectively solve problems, maximize opportunities, and continually learn and integrate other principles and upward growth. Habit number 1, be proactive. Throughout life, we are taught that psychologically, a stimulus triggers a response, and that's how the brain works. But the piece that we so often miss is the in-between. The in-between the stimulus and the response is our freedom to choose. That is what sets us apart as humans. We have the ability to make our own choices. Because we are by nature, proactive if our lives are a function of conditioning and conditions. And it is because we have, by conscious decisions or by default, chosen to empower those things that control us. These such as self-awareness, imagination, our conscience, and our independent will. The proactive approach is to change from the inside out to be different. Be different, be you. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. The most effective way to begin with the end in mind is to write a personal mission statement. Focus on what you want to be and what you want to do, the values or the principles upon which being and doing are based. More often than not, a person's center is some combination of these centers shown here in the slide, or other centers around us. Most people are a function of a variety of influences that play upon their lives, but at the center of it all is ourselves. We must always keep in mind ourselves and our personal goals. Put first things first. Habit number 3. This habit is the physical creation. It is the fulfillment, the actualization, the natural emergence of the first 2 habits. It is the exercise of independent will. It's the day in and day out, moment by moment, doing it. In order to succeed in putting first things first, we must organize ourselves. Long-term organization centers around the personal mission statement. We break this down into roles and then into goals, so that step by step, our mission is achieved. On a smaller scale, we break it down into even further plans and then a schedule. Habit number 1 says, you're the program. Habit number 2 says, write the program. But this, habit number 3, says, run the program, live the program. This is where we use our independent will, our self-discipline, our integrity, and our commitment to run our own success. Habit 4, think, win, win. This is where teamwork and collaboration come into play. It is easy to get caught up in the me factor, but in the real world, we're all a team. Whether you are the president of a company or the janitor, the moment you step from independence into interdependence in any capacity, you step into a leadership role. You are in a position of influencing other people, and the habit of effective interpersonal leadership is think, win, win. This is the frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. Character is the foundation of win-win, and everything else builds upon that foundation. Relationships are built and maintained based on the foundation of character. The trust, the emotional bank account, is the essence of win-win. Without trust, the best we can do is compromise. From relationships flow the agreement that gives definition and direction to win-win. They are also referred to as partnership or performance agreements. And win-win can only survive in organization when the system supports it. You have to talk the talk to walk the walk. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So, what does it truly mean to listen? We're taught to listen to others, to respect others, to hear what other people have to say. But do we truly know what it means to listen? To empathetically listen? We have such a tendency to rush in, to fix things up with good advice. But we often fail to take the time to diagnose, to really deeply understand the problem, to truly listen. Empathetic listening is risky. It's a great deal of security to go into deep listening experience, because you open yourself up to being influenced. You become vulnerable. And that is not something that we easily succumb to. But if we take the time to listen, we open up possibilities to learn and to achieve a deeper success. As we learn to deeply listen to other people, we discover tremendous differences in perception. We also begin to appreciate the impact of these differences and what they can have as people try to work together in interdependent situations. Habit 6, synergize. What does that mean? What is synergy? Synergy, simply put, means the sum is greater than the whole of its parts. It means that relationship which the parts have to each other is a part in and of itself. It is not only a part, but the most catalytic, the most empowering, the most unifying, and the most exciting part. Synergy stems from levels of communication which is built on trust and cooperation. For example, in this diagram, it shows clearly how closely trust is related to different levels of communication. This is how we build ourselves and those around us to be the best that we can be. This is how we achieve win-win. Together, we are greater than we are apart. And last, number 7, sharpen the saw. The final habit, the balanced self-renewal. This is the perceiving and enhancing the greatest asset that you have, you. It is renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social-emotional. By sharpening the saw, we exercise all 4 dimensions of our nature regularly and consistently in wise and balanced ways. This is the true joy in life, that being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as the mighty one. Rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no candle. It is a short, sort of splendid torch, which we have to hold up for the moment, and we want to make burn brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. We want to serve the future with unconditional love. But first we must encompass our whole self in this unconditional love. We must achieve balanced self-renewal. That last point was one of the biggest takeaways that I took from this. We focus all the time on what we can do for our students, what we can do for the future, how we can impact the future through teaching, through loving, through learning. But we have to take a minute and focus on ourselves, because we are the center of that unconditional love. If we can't love and learn ourselves, then how can we implement and express that onto our students? I hope that through this rundown and this webinar of this book, that you were able to take away as much as I was from these 7 habits. I truly recommend you taking the time to pick up this book, read it, skim through it, take away some quotes. Just take some time to yourself to reflect on becoming the best person that you can possibly be, so that you can achieve personal and interpersonal effectiveness from the inside out.